Today we're talking about a big secret in reselling books online that can make you a lot of money. Hey, it's Don. Today we're going to talk about selling books online. Now, I've done the scanning books for quite a long while. We've done the FBA route in the whole works until they raise their fees. But there's one area that I've always learned does get us a lot of money, even after all of the other book scanners and book buyers have gone through stuff. We are still able to rake these things out right now. Today we're talking about paperback books and the insane value some of them can sell for. So here we go with a few examples of those paperbacks that still are in circulation that can sell for some good money. Now, Harry Potter as well, Philosopher's Stone. This is a first edition, first press, 1997. This is from the UK, so if you're in the UK, this is one you need to look for. US-wise, this one here sold for $7,000+ in US currency. Now, most of them do not sell that high. There's other factors as well. There may only be one of these up at a time, but this is something that's still out there. There's a bunch of these that sold on eBay in the last 90 days, so it is something that does routinely show up. Most people in this area are going to be looking for the hardcover Harry Potter first editions. Most people out there pass up the paperbacks. Almost every single place I go, there's no one else buying paperbacks but me. Now, Stephen King, for those of you who do not know, wrote under the name Richard Bachman. This is two complete sets, a US edition and a British edition of basically the same books in their slip-cased box. Excellent mint, just phenomenal condition for these. This isn't some fluke. These two did sell for $3,200, as you see them here. And just to give you an example on just the first edition of one, Rage was in both of those box sets. This one sold for around $3,000. This is a first print U.S. release from 1977. It's an excellent fine condition. I've looked at this very closely. It's probably one of the best ones I have seen. Now, you got to know sometimes which book would be a first edition, whether it's the UK book or the US book. With this one here, the US came out first and then the British. With, say, Harry Potter, the first edition would have been pressed in the country of origin, so England, the UK, may be the first edition for other books such as Harry Potter. Now, here's a book by Kelly Price. This is a very sought-after book, The Secret, A Treasure Hunt. This is from 1982. They've made reproductions, reprints of this one that look very, very close. I have seen the reproductions. If you're not careful and you're not reading all of the copyright lines on things like this, you can miss them. Now, before we go any farther, why are these books something that you can still get versus some other hardbound? Many people who scan books won't look at anything that doesn't have a barcode on it. They want the quick, easy money. If you want to center in on ones without barcode, you can do far better in some cases, because most of the time when I go to a place, those books could have been scanned by barcode scanners 2, 3, 4, 5 times. No one looks at the ones without barcodes. And the ones who may, by some strange chance, go after some of the other ones without barcodes almost never look at the paperbacks. So I am able to find paperbacks all over the place, especially those little mom and pop places, for almost nothing a quarter. Church sales are great for things like this, and then can flip them for some insane money. Now you can see the price here. That is the legitimate price on this one here. It's not a reprint. It's in excellent condition. These are all paperbacks. This is a larger format, of course, but it is still a paperback. It is something that will turn up for the same reason any other paperback does. Now here's another one, just to give you an example. Almost every single one of these that I've ever seen in my life for sale has sold for like hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Even if they are missing a page or two, I have still seen them sell. This one has a lot of damage, some major spine issues, some major issues all around for only being from 1982. And this one still sold for $500. That's why I say, even if someone else is a book scanner, a bookseller, they may pass on things because of no barcode, because it's a paperback, as well as looking at the condition. Most people look at the spines when they are pulling books out. That's why I don't really care condition-wise in many items that I sell. You can look at my store, you can look at my videos. I don't have to have the most perfect copy of some things that I sell, because I know even a lesser quality one will sell even better than a high-priced one. There will be more people that can afford it at least. Sometimes some of these books could be repaired, touched up, and such forth as well. So this is a huge area. Most people do not mess with this who do scan books, especially ones that aren't in mint condition. Now here's an interesting one. This is fairly scarce, maybe not something everybody would have a chance to run into. Now this is Ophelia Wears Black by Segovia Amil. This is a very scarce book. A lot of these sorts of things almost fall into the area of occult, and anything in that area usually does go for some good money. Now there are some that I find almost every place I go, and those would be Rex Stout ones. That is the Nero Wolfe Mysteries. There's been TV shows, movies, and such forth of Nero Wolfe. It's an area that I always look for. Most of them are by Dell, but not all of them. They usually come about in the 1930s and 40s. One key factor on the ones that I always know I've got a good assortment is when you look at some of the backs of them. Some of the backs on these have maps on the back of them. And the maps show the scene of the crime and things like that. Whenever I find it, I can see the back, I instantly know it's a good paperback. None of these are going to have a barcode. None of these come out in the modern day age. These are all very scarce. They didn't survive. They came out just before the war, and a lot of this was turned in for the war effort. All these leftover, these were cheap. They were meant to be read, and most people didn't save them. That's why paperbacks still do carry a value. There are people that just collect paperbacks, and that is it. There's paperbacks also that had limited release overseas or in other areas. This is Joe Deaver. This is a whole series of these, mostly able to be found in England and over in Europe area. Not a ton of these show up in the US. I have seen a couple in my days. They're usually fairly expensive, but you can see the price this one went for. And this is not an anomaly. It's a standardized pricing for most of these sorts. Here's just another one. Same author, same everything, same line, just to give you an idea. Many of these sorts are low run, low printed ones, so the first edition, just like a hardbound, will carry the majority of the value. If they hit it off, they only released a few in the beginning. The second, third, fourth printing may have tons of them, but the first edition of some of these paperbacks may have only been released in 5,000, 10,000. Very limited numbers is the point. Now here's a book by Jack Parsons. It's basically on the occult as well, witchcraft and such forth. And they've got Crowley listed in here. That's Aleister Crowley, if you're not familiar with that. Ozzy Osbourne mentions Mr. Crowley in one of his songs. That's literally the same person we're talking about here. So this is an occult one. A lot of these are limited in production. Wasn't a huge market. There wasn't a huge aspect of these around, so they were limitedly pressed, in some cases by the individual, the author. So they're very, very scarce. Again, as I said earlier in this video, those are the ones I'll run after if I see them. I will pass up hardbound books to go after this section of paperbacks almost any day of the week. Usually I do far better no matter what if I'm out. If I'm out and go to 10 different sources that have books, I'm probably making better money on the paperbacks these days. Again, because so many people scan books. So if you're going behind scanners, they've hit every one they can think of that has a barcode on the back for sure. So you got to go looking for other items. This is where our money comes from in some cases, more so than other areas in books. Dean Koontz is one of those writers who wrote under different names earlier on in his career. Demon Seed is one of his more popular ones. I liked the book. It was actually pretty enjoyable. But earlier in his career, 1970-ish, he wrote some more adult, romantic, I should say, types of paperback pulp books. He wrote about 30 of them. Doesn't like to admit it, but it's pretty much a proven fact that this is him writing under Anne Griffin. His wife owns the, I guess, copyright to the book. It's pretty much been tied down to him as well. There's actually one he did write in the same time frame, this same type of book with his own name. So it's pretty much a given that he has some of these. If you don't know the names, you may just pass up this sort of thing. So knowing other names people wrote under is always a huge plus. Just like in the record field, knowing other names or who's in which group can really help you sell it, or steer you in the direction to buy the correct one that's going to get you the most money. This is a great example here. Knowing all these oddball ones, knowing the genre of this could almost be considered like a sexual exploitation book to some extent in some people's mind as well. So it's got some touchy subjects in these, but they sell for some insane money for that reason. Again, something most people would pass up. Here's another one of those, Claire Morgan. This is actually Patricia Highsmith, someone fairly well known from that era, The Price of Salt. Doesn't look like much. It's just a cheap looking book. Still kind of goes into that sexual exploitation kind of thing too. It's into a different sort of topic also, but that's the area that does sell for some decent money. So $665 for this one. Now here's a Mary Oliver dream work. This is signed, so this isn't a fair example. If this was unsigned, it would still be worth looking for. This is poetry. There are some poetry that fall on my list of books to always buy. Lots of poets have some very good books out there, even if you're not a poetry person, so to speak. If you want to sell something, you got to pick at most of the genres to find these sorts of diamonds in the rough. She actually won a Pulitzer Prize for poetry, so this is one of her earlier works here. You can see the price. This is another reason people pass on books. Poetry. Most people assume poetry doesn't sell for much money, and they will pass it. This has many things against it for the typical book scanner. No barcode. It's paperback. It's poetry as well. So, excellent example here. Now, one of my favorite lines as a kid that I did like to read was the Conan the Barbarian series. This is a boxed set from the 70s. Ace was a massive producer of some of the best sci-fi fantasy paperbacks back in the early 60s, 70s, even farther back as well. This is a sealed, in-the-box still set of them. Something you just won't run into very often. Price dictates that as well. Almost $600 on this one here. Excellent example. Even these loose will do fairly well. If you find the whole series of Conan the Barbarian, they go excellent. It's just a super sell, super quick, easy money on all of those sorts for us. Now this is Christopher Paolini, and this is Aragon. Most people would assume that the hardbound edition is the one you want. There are some paperbacks, some soft cover paperbacks that do extremely well also. This is from one of those series also. I've talked about some of his other books. These do extremely well. People do want these. Paperback is fine if it's the first edition, first stated. In some cases, the first edition you would assume would be always hardbound, but that is not the case. Sometimes they didn't think it would move very well, so they were released in paperback form. So the paperback edition, in many cases, is the one you want, not the hardbound edition. So you've got to have some basic information on what you're looking at when you're out in the wild trying to source books like this. Now here's an area that I do love. I worked in a movie theater. I love anything tied into movies in general that came out when I was younger. I love the movie posters and stills and all that sort of thing. I do buy and collect some movie soundtracks even. Some of these books here, these OOPs, out of print, if you didn't know what OOP means in this sort of thing, go for some insane money, even in not so great condition. They did not make a lot of these things. Not many people were out rushing to get Friday the 13th Part 3 in paperback. It doesn't relate well. A lot of people who would watch the horror slasher movies aren't going to look out for a book of the material. The first Friday the 13th book is more available than this one. As the series went on, the want for some of these sorts of things did die off. So limited print run, very small print run, not many of them around, not many sold. So this is another one of those excellent areas. There's a ton, hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of movie-related paperback books that can still get you some decent money. 15, 20 bucks, 50 bucks, 100 bucks. There's a lot of those out there if you know which ones to look for, if you're scouring those paperback shelves. And heading right back to that same kind of exploitation area here, Reform School Girl. This is a classic in any condition, missing pages, whatever the case may be, you will sell this no matter what it looks like. Many people, again, may miss this or may think it's scathing and they don't want to sell it, but the money is there in this sort of topic, this area. This is an early 40s version of it as well. Even later printings on this with similar covers can still garner some money. So not everything has to be a first edition in a paperback in general. It's another one of those ways where you can rake out some more money because people will be passing them up. They don't want to spend the effort to type in and search for other areas in books when they're out there scanning. It takes a lot of time for those who don't have the basic knowledge in paperbacks to sit there and type every single thing in or do an image search, because the image search may not come back correctly. You never know. Just depends on what type of books you are looking for. But this is what I have for you on these sorts of areas. There's a ton of money out there that is just being left out there by those who just scan and don't search for the other oddball items. Well, there you have it. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
Looking for good flavor in sugarless gum. We're looking for a new kind of sugarless gum that's carefree. A good tasting sugarless gum that's carefree. If you want a sugarless gum, chew carefree. Carefree is sugarless. Sugarless is carefree. You know about sugarless gum, chew carefree. Carefree is sugarless. Sugarless is carefree. For you and those people who care, there's carefree. Peppermint, spearmint, cinnamon, fruit, that's carefree. We found good flavor in sugarless gum with carefree. Chew carefree, it's sugarless. Chew carefree, it's good.
Chew the sugarless gum that really tastes good. Chew Carefree from Beech Nut.